So you're going to start 1-5, which is solving quadratics. So standard form of a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c. And then this is kind of like the definition. So a can't be 0 because then it wouldn't be quadratic. So it's the x squared that makes it quadratic. And then the coefficients and the constant are all real numbers. So a, b, and c are real numbers. Right, number 8 just says identify A, B, and C. So let's put it in standard form. So we should write x squared, then minus 4x, then plus 21 equals 0. And then A is the coefficient of x squared, so that would be 1. B is the coefficient of x, so that would be, and then C is the constant, 21. Yep, that's all. So that's just getting us ready. We're going to be doing quadratic formula tomorrow. We're going to do that tomorrow in tomorrow's section, but we have to know A, B, and C to do that. Okay? So the first way we're going to look at solving quadratics is by factoring and then using zero product property. So if you're given a quadratic trinomial, or even if it's a binomial, but it has x squared and x, so both terms, it has a and b, then we're going to want to try to factor first. So factoring is the first option with solving these. And then if factoring doesn't work, because we know not everything factors, we'll look at some other ways to solve. So the zero product property says that if a times b equals 0, then a is 0 or b is 0. So once we factor and we get our trinomial to 2 factors, then you set each part equal to 0. So that's what that means, is to set each factor equal to 0. So if you're going to solve by factoring, you need an equals 0 on one side. So the first thing let's do is add 21 to both sides. And then I want to try to factor this trinomial. So it has to be z and z. And I want to multiply to be positive 21. So it's either going to be 2 positives or 2 negatives. I want to add to be negative 10, so I'm thinking 2 negatives. Negative 7 and negative 3. Good. Okay, and then this is where zero product property comes in. You set each factor equal to 0. So z equals 7 or z equals 3. You could write your answer like z equals 7, comma 3 or 3, comma 7. So like in Schoology, if this you were typing it in, I would have the z equals for you, and then you would type 7, comma 3 or 3, comma 7. Okay? questions about that? Let's look at another one. So if you're using zero product property, that means you have to factor, you have to have the factors. This should have had an equal 0 at the end, so go ahead and put that there. How do you factor with 4 terms? Yep, use grouping. So what can you factor out of the first group? N squared. So you get n minus 3. And then what would you factor out of the second group? Good. Negative 4. So n minus 3. So what they have in common, what you factor out now is the n minus 3. And that leaves you with n squared minus 4. If you notice, n squared minus 4 could factor because it's difference of squares. So that factors to n, okay, n minus 2, n plus 2. Once you're factored, use the zero product property. So you would set each part equal to 0. So n equals 3, negative 2, or 2. So what was the degree? What was the degree of this polynomial? 3. So that's degree is the highest exponent. How many solutions did we have? 3. What was the degree of this? How many solutions did we have? 2. So the degree tells you the number of solutions. Now they're not always going to be real solutions. You can get imaginary ones too. But that should help guide you. So if you were to stop and just give me like 3 and 4, then you know you did something wrong. Or you give me 3 and positive 2, but you forget the negative 2. You know you did something wrong. Okay? All right. We're going to look at now solving by square roots. So if you don't have a b term, if you only have you only have an x squared, then the easiest way to solve these would be using square roots. Don't forget that we should be getting 2 solutions. When we're solving and you're taking the square root while you solve, meaning you're drawing in your own radical, then you have to write plus or minus. So this says x squared equals k, then x equals positive square root of k or negative square root of k. All right, so x is plus or minus positive 4 or negative 4. So plus or minus 4. Do not forget the plus or minus. You need both solutions. The same thing over here. So I'm drawing in the radical, so x equals plus or minus. And then what is the square root of negative 9? 3i. Plus or minus 3i. I also want to use square roots for problems like this. I need to get to x, and x is inside the parentheses. So to get rid of the parentheses means I have to get rid of the square. So I do the square root of both sides. So the square root of x minus 3 squared is just x minus 3. All right, square root of 5, can you simplify that? No, but it is plus or minus square root of 5. Then we need to put x by itself. So add 3 to both sides. And I'm going to write the 3 in front of the plus or minus. So this is the exact answer. Notice that it says find the exact answer. So this is exact, meaning no rounding, no decimals. And then I want to find the approximate answers. So this still gives me two answers, 3 plus square root of 5, 3 minus square root of 5. So I want to do both of those in my calculator. And it says round to the hundredths place. So that means you rounded 2 decimal places. I will take off if you don't round correctly. Okay, you should be able to round by now. Pay attention to it. So you should get 5. When you do 3 plus square root of 5, you get 5.24 because it's 2, 3, 6. So that 6 makes the 3 move up to 4. And then when you do 3 minus square root of 5, you get 0.763. You get 0.763, but the 3 is less than 5, so that keeps that a 6. And these are your approximate answers. Notice that I put like squiggly equals, that's what means approximate. Questions about those? Okay. So let's go back to standard form of a quadratic. So again, if we have a quadratic in standard form, we want to factor. If things don't factor, we have a couple options. We have quadratic formula, and then we also have completing the square. So completing the square and quadratic formula really do the same thing. They still give you your answers. On the test, there will be a specific question that says solve by completing the square. So even though you could use something else, you have to show this way. You learned this in Algebra 2, and maybe it was one of those things you didn't quite get in Algebra 2. Well, now is the time, because we'll do it in here right now, and then we'll use it later this semester, and we'll also use it next semester. So it's not going away. You can't just kind of skip over it. Okay. So I look at this problem and I see that it actually does factor. So if I had the choice, I would factor this. But it tells us to complete the square, so we're going to complete the square. The first thing we want to do is move C, so move the constant to the other side. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So step 1 is to add 5 to both sides. And I get x squared plus 4x equals 5. Step 2, divide by a on both sides. That's only if a is something other than 1. Okay, right now a is 1, so I don't have to worry about step 2. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to step 3. And I have to use this little formula to come up with the number to complete the square, so it's a perfect square trinomial. All right, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit. I'm going to just, instead of saying multiplying by 1/2, I'm going to call it dividing by 2. So b over 2a squared. Also, since we divide by A is always going to be 1. So I'm really just going to call this B over 2 squared. We don't have to worry about the A part. So what is B? 4. Okay, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and then 2 squared is 4. So 4 is a number that I have to add to both sides so I can complete the square. So what I have okay, I want to complete the square here because this is where I'm trying to get a perfect square trinomial. But if I add 4 to the left, I have to add 4 to the right to keep this balanced. So I use this special formula to complete the square here. And this is how this works. So I want to factor this, and I set it up to factor a special way. But let's look at it. So I need a multiply to be 4 and add to be 4. So it's x plus 2 and x plus 2. I set this up so it would be x plus 2 squared. I wanted it to be a perfect square trinomial, so I'd get this binomial squared. I did that on purpose. Okay, 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay. So a shortcut to going from here to here is you look at this number before you square it, and that's what it's going to factor to. So that's a positive 2, so it'll be x plus 2 quantity squared. Okay? Now step 5 is to solve. So this was just like the previous problem. I want to get to x, so I have to square root to get rid of the parentheses. So I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus 3. Subtract 2, x equals negative 2 plus or minus 3. Well, this is not a radical, so you can actually simplify this and give me the 2 answers. It's still exact answers. So negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So if you could simplify that, negative 2 plus or minus 3, simplify it. Any questions? Okay, so that seemed kind of long. We'll do another example and we'll shorten it up a bit. We had to make sure we went through every single piece this first time. And so we'll shorten it up a little bit for this next example. I'm still going to go through all the steps, but I'm not necessarily going to write each one. So use completing the square to solve. We're going to write our answer as an exact answer and an approximate answer. Okay. So first thing is we need to move the constant. So I want to add 2 to both sides. Then I need to figure out my number that I need to complete the square. So that's b over 2 squared. So what is b? divided by 2 is 4. And 4 squared is 16. So I have to add 16 to both sides. So I put the number that I needed, so this would factor to a binomial squared. So it's going to be x. Never mind. Okay. This will be x plus 4, right? So x plus 4 is what gives you this, x squared, this trinomial here. Okay. But remember, I can just look at that number before you square it, and that's what it'll factor to. And 2 plus 16 is 18. All right, now we solve. So take the square root of both sides. So 18 is not a perfect square, but it could simplify. 9 goes into it, 9 times 2. So square root of 9 is 3. So square root of 18 can be written as 3 square root of 2. And then subtract 4 from both sides. So negative 4 plus or minus 3 square root of 2. So that is my exact answer. Then I need my approximate answers. So do negative 4 plus 3 square root of 2, negative 4 minus 3 square root of 2. Yes. Yes. So I got positive 0.24, and then I got negative 8.24. So you guys got? No? Yes. Questions about that? All right, now we're going to look at a couple where we have an a value that's not 1. All right, so we have to do that second step where we divide. Okay. So I already have step 1 done because I moved the constant. So 20 is already on the other side, so I don't have to start with that. But I have to divide by a. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out that 4. I'm not factoring out 4x because I need this to say x squared. I need it to say x squared so I can do the trinomial. But I factor out the number in front of x squared. So that's 4. And then I would get x squared minus 3x equals 20. Then divide by 4 to get rid of it. Okay. Now I'm ready for step 3, which is to find the number to complete the square. So I always do this with blanks, just so I don't forget to add it to both sides. And it just kind of helps me keep it organized. Okay, so b over 2 squared. So that's negative 3 over 2 squared. Keep it a fraction. Keep things fractions, improper fractions, if necessary. So first of all, when you square a positive. So either way, you're going to be adding. And then 3 squared is 9, and 2 squared is 4. So 9/4 to both sides. So it's not very pretty, but it's okay. We're still all right with our numbers here. Okay. Then I will factor to remember this number here before you square it. It's negative, so x minus 3/2. Equals, you have to do 5 plus 9/4. 29/4. Remember, if you're using a scientific calculator, if you get a mixed number, hit second ABC. That'll change it back to an improper fraction for you. Okay, take the square root of both sides. So it's plus or minus the square root of 29/4. I'm going to talk about cleaning our answer up here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and add your 3 halves. So this is the answer. So if you can get to here, this is the process of completing the square. So this is the main point of this problem. Okay, everybody okay with how we got here? Yes.
I'm just confused on how we went from like the 9/4 to
This?
no, not that, but I can't see
This?
Yeah.
So this factors to this.
Okay.
We set it up that way. Okay? It just looks ugly because 3 is odd, so when you divide it by 2, you're going to get a fraction.
Okay.
Okay? And like I said, it's always going to be this number here. Okay? Okay. Other than that, are everybody okay with how we got here? Now, in the next steps that I'm going to do, this is just cleaning our answer up. So if you could get to this point where we are right now, that's going to give you the majority of your points. The rest of it is just cleaning the answer up. So if you left it like this, depending on how many points the problem is, you miss maybe a half point or 1 point from here. Okay? So what I want to do is, I can't leave radicals in the denominator. Right? The square root of 4 is 2. So to get both points, you at least need to get to here. Now, your book will combine these. This is not an imaginary number. It's not a complex number. So you don't have to do a plus bi. You don't have to keep them separate. So if you use quadratic formula, your answer would look like this anyway. So this is, if you check your answer in the back, what it'd look like in the back of the book. So majority of points, if you get here, this, or this is cleaning your answer up. All right, questions about that? Okay, we're going to do another one. So kind of the same process where you have an A value. It's not going to be very pretty, but the process is the same no matter what. It'll say to complete the square, yes. If it doesn't say a method, you could choose the method to use. Alright, so this is number 78 from 1.5. You have an A value, so you have to factor it out. Now, 2 does not go into 5. So let's think about what it means to factor out. So to factor out is distributive property backwards. Distributive property is multiplication. So if you're going backwards, you're dividing. That's because, so 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this number here is just 5 over 2p, because 2 does not go into 5. So if I need to clear that, let's look at that if it were like this. Okay, if there were a 6. So even though you do this in your head, this is what you're doing. 2 divided by 2, that gives you the 1, and 6 divided by 2, which is what would give you this. So if I said factor 2p squared minus 6p, you'd have 2 and then p squared minus 3p. Okay? You would go ahead and go right to this, but what you're doing is dividing both of those by 2. But since 2 does not go into 5, I have to write it like this, just 5 over 2. Okay. Now let's divide both sides by that 2 to get rid of it. Okay, now I need to complete the square. Alright, so that's b over 2 squared. Since b is a fraction, instead of writing b over 2, I'm going to write that as 1/2 b. So dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. Are we all okay with that? Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. The reason why I do that is because b is a fraction, and I don't have to do 5 over 2 over 2. I just don't want to mess up with my calculation there. So what I have is 1/2 times negative 5/2 squared, which is negative 5/4 squared. All right, squaring negative is positive. And then 5 squared is? And 4 squared is? 16. So 25 over 16. Okay, so I want to factor now. And I set it up so it would factor to this binomial squared. So what's going to be inside? P minus 5/4. This number before you square it. Equals, and you have to do 1/2 plus 25 over 16. What do we get? 33 over 16. So you should get. Did you guys get that? 33 over 16? Yeah. Okay. Then what do I do? Good. Now we're solving, so take the square root. So I'm going to go ahead and write this as square root of 33 over 4. Are we all good with that? You square root top and bottom. Add 5/4. So So you can be done right here, or like I said, if you're checking your answers, you could put them together because they have a common denominator. If it doesn't tell you to write exact and approximate, then just write exact. If you're going to choose to do one or the other, choose exact. It will specifically tell you if you have to do the approximate answer as well. Questions about that? Okay, so I would tonight practice a few of these, at least the easy ones where A is not 1, just so you get used to the, or where A is 1, just so you get used to the process. Okay, we're going to do another hard one tomorrow. Pack your stuff up. We're going to do another hard one tomorrow.